Welcome back. Let's continue building our clicks per second tester. The first thing I want to do is we're going to open the files again. So go to File Explorer, open that, then go to your documents, find your folder. I call it LTC for Learn to Code. And in there, we created this new folder called CPS. So go open that. And here we have our files. Let me move to the left here. There we go. Or it's to the right, depends how you look at it. Okay, so the files are here, and you should open them with Visual Studio. Right-click, open with Visual Studio, open with Visual Studio. And of course, you want to run it. So right-click, open with Microsoft Edge, and I like to put this on the side. And this like this side by side, so I can see my code and I can see it running. So what we got so far? A quick review. When the button gets clicked, we get this pop-up that says, it got clicked. But that's not what we want to actually do in our game. I believe in our design, we're going to put a little message that says how many times something was clicked. Let me bring our design back here. And yes, in our design, we want to put this message clicks, and then we want to obviously say how many times it got clicked. So why don't we start working on this? So I will need some kind of, I'll need to put the clicks here on the top. So maybe I'll just put another div. So here we are. You know how we had these line breaks? Let's get rid of them because they're going to cause trouble. So go ahead, you do that as well in a moment. Refresh, that's how it looks like, okay? We're going to deal with the spacing later on. It's not important, but let's get rid of those line breaks because they kind of just are ugly. So here's the big click me button, and I need to put another div right below the game header and the click me button and above the click me button. So I'm going to put div. And I'm going to give it ID something like, how about message? And so that I can see it, I can say, click the green button. And I'm going to close the div. And let me save and refresh. And now I have this button here. So go ahead, do the same thing. Add this div between the header and the click me. And come back when you're done. This is how it should look like for you. Now I probably want this text to be centered. So why don't we do that using the CSS? Now we gave this div an ID message, so I'm going to copy that so that I don't make mistakes. And I'm going to go to cps.css and I'm going to style it. So I'm going to say div, with an ID message. Control V to copy. You know what? In fact, I don't even need to say div. I can just do it like this. Why? Because if I say div, then the CSS will only apply this style to an element which is of type div. But if we don't care, we'll simply say, you know what? Any element that has an ID message, go ahead and apply this style. In our case, it doesn't really matter because it actually is div. But you will find later on with HTML that there'll be other elements that you're going to be using. There'll be things like spam, there'll be there'll be A tags, lots of different tags that you might want to be using. So it's kind of better to just simply say, give me an element with ID message. And here we put open squirrely and close curly bracket. And what do we want to do? We want it center it. Well, I know how to center. It's this text alignment. So I'm going to copy, paste, I'm going to save, going to refresh, and yeah, it's there. Maybe I want it a little bit larger. So yeah, I'll say put font size, I don't know, large. Let's see how that looks like. Maybe larger. Oops. Okay, maybe that's good. So go ahead, implement this, add this directive to your cps.css, and make sure it looks like this. Come back when you're done. So now that we got this looking this way, now we want to display a message that a button got clicked. So why don't we start by saying, rather than doing this pop-up, why don't we simply have this area here say clicked or something like that. So let's go back to the HTML and let's review how we got the click to do the pop-up. Well, the way we did that, let me make it like this so it's easier to see, okay, is we added an event listener. We said in the document, so inside this area, give me an element with an ID, click me, and that's the element. Okay, so this part of it gives us a what we call a reference to this element. Now that we have referenced this element, we added an event listener, and we said when this element gets clicked, call a function which is called clicked, and the function is here. And the function basically it's like a name group of code, and everything between these brackets ends up being run. And we did this, we put this alert. But what we really want to do is we want to change this text of this element, and that's the element here, this div message element. We want to change it to say clicked. Now we've done that before, so first of all, why don't we get a reference to that element? So we say document, inside the document, get me element by ID, and do quotes, and what's the element called? Called message. So I'm going to double click copy because I don't want to make a silly mistake. So I just copy and paste. And if I, once I do that, I can put dot, and is there something with text? And so this is not something you would normally figure out on your own. It's not really intuitive, but you will learn. If you want to change the text, the content, so to speak, of this div, you do something called dot inner text. There's inner HTML and inner text. I'm not going to talk about the differences between the two for now. Let's just use inner text. Inner text allows me to change what's inside here. So I'm going to say, make sure that the inner text is the same as clicked. Whoops. I know that this equal thing is a little bit weird because from math, you're used to seeing things like, 2 is equal to x plus 1. And this would be like an equation that you try to solve. Well, this equals is used to change what's inside this inner text. It's saying take this thing on the right and put it into the inner text of the element. So really, it would be better if it was something like this. It says this thing should go inside this thing, but it isn't. We used a equal sign. That's just the way it is. So let's try this to see if it works. Let's refresh, and I'm going to click, and we'll see if this will say clicked. And yes, it does indeed say this. So I want you to go ahead and do this. So you will have to add this line. Put it like this. You will have to say document dot get element by ID. Then you do open bracket quote, name of the element, close quote, close bracket, dot inner text equals clicked. And again, remember, it's case sensitive. So the T here has to be capital, cannot be small. So go ahead, do that, save, and make sure that your game works, your page works this way. So what's next? Well, it says that it's clicked, but we wanted to actually count the number of clicks that occur. How do we do that? Well, we have to think about how we actually count and compare that to how computers actually count. Now, what do I mean about that? By that, let me bring a whiteboard. And let's think about how we think. We count, when you have to count 1, 2, 3. So let's just say the button gets clicked once, you would say 1. Next time you would say 2, 3, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. But when you're counting 1, 2, 3, ask yourself, how do you know that 3 follows 2? I know I'm asking what seems like a silly question, but believe me, it makes a difference. Oops, sorry, my mistake. Didn't mean to do that. Let me bring this back here. All right. You may be wondering why am I asking you this, but don't worry, this will soon you'll understand. When you're counting, you say 1, and then you say 2. What you really are saying is that, okay, it used to be 1, and I have to add 2 to it. Sorry, I have to add 1 to it. So if I add 1 to 1, I get 2. If I'm on 2, how do I know I have to say 3 next? Well, because I had 2, I have to add 1, and now I'm 3. Well, if you're on 3, how do you know 4 follows? Well, because I was on 3, I added 1, and now I'm on 4. So think about what happened here. To get from here to here, you had to plus 1. You had to add 1, right? To get to here, from 3 to 4, you had to add 1. And plus 1, and so on. Again, if you're looking at it like, yeah, duh, this is how we count. What's so special about this? And the reason why is because we need to tell the computer how to do this. And computers actually know pretty much nothing. They don't even know how to count. We have to tell them how to count. And you will have to describe it to the computer the way you'll be describing it from, I don't know, to like a robot or something, right? You would say, when you are on a number like 2, add a 1. Again, next time, add a 1. Next time, add a 1. What you just created is an algorithm. An algorithm is something that repeats, and a computer can repeat this over and over again. So what if I said, for example, the number that I'm currently on, I'm going to call this x. So x is equal to 2. So if to count, I do x plus 1. And then x is different. Now x is 3. To get to 4, I do 1. X plus 1. X plus 1. Do you see a pattern? Do you see how this is all the same? It's just following a, well, it's that's what an algorithm is. It's repeating something over and over again. Let's do that. Let's implement this. Let's go back to our code. Let's begin by doing something that I will explain later. We'll go to var x. I'll make it equal to 0. I will explain this later. I will explain it in detail later. But for now, what I want you to do is, if I say var x, I'm saying create what we call the variable and give it a name x. A variable is like a bucket where I can put information into it, like an envelope for a letter. And I'm saying I want this envelope, this bucket, to be called x, and I want it to have some number in it, and that is 0. So if I ever want to find out what's inside this bucket, I can do that, and whatever is inside, I'll be able to. So I can, for example, display what's inside this bucket. Now, how would I display this? Let's go here. Let's just say I say clicked, and I want to say colon, and then I want to display here the value, what's inside the x bucket. The way I do that is I say plus x. Now, again, that might sound weird because plus is normally what you do in mathematics, you know, add 3 plus 5 or something like this. But this is like a piece of text, and that I'm saying plus a number. What's going to happen? Well, this plus in this case, this plus means put these two things together. So if x is 0, basically the program will add a 0 here, and it will look like this. So let's run this. Let's save and refresh. And let's see. Click me. And it says clicked 0. Why 0? Okay, because the bucket x, again, I'll call it variable, has inside it a 0. Now I can put other things to it. I can say content. This is these are the contents of x. And who can guess what will be written out once this executes? See if you guessed correctly. I'm going to come here, refresh, clicked. It put out this, it put this part, clicked, colon, space, and then it added this, these are the, okay, I can't even spell. I should say these are the contents of X. But you get my point, right? It adds some kind of message. And I can put anything I want here. I can just put junk, characters, anything I want. It's just some text. Save, refresh, click. Okay, so this is what a variable is. Variable is just a bucket, a way of remembering something, some text, some number, and we'll dive deeper into this. For now, just remember that you can put anything into it. We're going to put a 0. Why? Because we're going to store the number of clicks. So if a person clicks the button once, we're going to put 1 into X. If a person clicks twice, we're going to put 2 into X. Now, how do we do that? Well, we developed this algorithm for adding, and we said that every time you click, we should do X plus 1. And the X will be the previous number. So if I go back here, so X here is the previous number, 2, and then we add 1 to it. Now, the first time we click it, it's going to be, let's do that, hold on a second. We first put the value of 0 into X. So X plus 1 would become 1. Hope that makes sense. 0 plus 1 will be 1. So the first time when this page loads, the number of clicks is 0 because nobody clicked yet. And the moment we click, we'll add 1 to it, which means it's going to say 1 clicks. But we have to do another trick. We can do, let's do this. How about, first I'm going to do it like this. Actually, no, this is going to be a problem. We're going to say click count equals this bar here. Okay, don't worry, you're not going to have to implement this. So what I'm saying is create another variable, again, a bucket, and inside this put the number of clicks. And well, what's the number of clicks? Well, it's going to be plus 1. So let's do that. Click count, save. Let's refresh, and let's see. If I click, now it should say clicked, and it should say 1. And voila, that's exactly what happened. Now I'm going to, if this is something not clear, I would rewind the video and watch this again. But I'm going to actually go and debug this code to show you how this works. So again, I'm going to go here and press F12, or more tools, developer tools. I am. And I'm going to remove all any breakpoints that I had from before. Now let me put a breakpoint here. And I'll put a breakpoint here. And I'm going to refresh the page, and let's see what happens. So this line gets executed when the page loads. So let me see, what is the value of x? If I move my mouse over x, it tells me what's inside. And you know, it says undefined. What does that mean? It means that there's nothing inside because I didn't put anything inside yet. Only once this line runs, we'll take a 0 and we'll put it inside x. So let me run this line. Let me click this icon, and I'm going to go to next line. Okay, so this line got executed, it got ran, and now I'm on this line. And if I move the mouse over x, it now tells me that x has a value of 0. So again, imagine that into the envelope we put the a value of 0, or into a bucket we put a sticky note with a number 0 on it. So let me now click this button to run. So this runs the actual application. And when I click here, it's going to run this function. And because I have a breakpoint here, it's going to stop and it's going to wait. So let me click. And okay, it's telling me that it's paused in a debugger. And here it is. It's awaiting, it's asking me what to do. So what's the value of x? Let me move this here. Okay. Oh, I don't know why it's not displaying it. Okay, you know what? Here we're creating another variable called click count, and it's also undefined because there's nothing in it. But the moment we take x, oh, now it showed up finally. Come on. Here we go. It said x is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. So then the computer will take everything on here and put it inside this bucket. So let me execute this line of code. Okay, so this now finished. And if I put my mouse over click count, it says 1. Oops, sorry. It says 1. So now the variable click count, the bucket click count, whatever you want to call it, has a value of 1. And when we change the inner text of this message, it's going to say clicked, colon, and it's going to display the click count, which is 1. So let me run this, and look at that. Clicked 1. I hope that's clear. If it's not, please do add a comment and say that it wasn't clear so we can explain it in more detail. So let me go back here. Let me refresh. And again, let me try clicking it. So I click here. And well, it says 1, so it's right at least once, but now I'm clicking all over the place and it still says I clicked once. Now why does it say that? So what's going on? Well, let's see what we're doing. So this function, this piece of code gets fired every time I click. Okay, let's go back and debug it again. Let's go F12. And I'm going to remove the breakpoint here. I'm going to just put a breakpoint. Let me see what happens every time we go here. So I click and this runs. Okay, so I'm going to just run it. This button just runs the program. It doesn't stop. So I'm going to run it. Okay, so every time I click, I go to this clicked code block. But what happens when I click it? I always add a 0 to a 1. Well, that's not good because it's as if we always clicked for the first time. What we need to do is we need to remember after the first click, we need to now put a different value into x and say, hey, you know what? Once it gets clicked the first time, the value should now be 1. It was clicked once. And then when it gets clicked the second time, we should say, okay, now it's been clicked twice. So the way we would do that, and this is getting a little bit tricky, I know. This will be a little bit hard to follow, but just bear with me for now. So what we want to do is we say, okay, click count this is the current count. So maybe what we can do, we can say, hey, x is now equal to click count. Let's see, and I'll explain how that works in a moment. Clicked once, and look at that. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It is working. Why is it working? Let me explain. The first time the code is executed, the number of times the button was clicked is 0. So 0 plus 1 is 1, and we start the click count, and then we display it. But, well, after the first click, we know that we now clicked once. So we say, listen, into this variable x, replace the 0 with the current click count, which is 2, which is 1, and then 2 and 3. Let's debug that as well. Let me refresh. All right. So what we can do actually, we can here. Don't worry about it for now. What we can do is we can add this watch. What that is show me what's inside the variables. What's inside the bucket x, what's inside the bucket click count. So I can say watch and will show me what's inside x and show me in click count what's inside here. Okay, so what's going on here? X is 0 because this is the first time we've clicked. So x is still 0. After this line ends, click count should be 1 because 0 plus 1 is 1. So let me go next line. And yes, indeed, click count is 1. And then we're going to display later on, we're going to later on display the click count here. And we're going to say clicked 1. Yeah, actually it tells you what's it going to show. But what do we do here? We're saying, okay, now remember how many times how many times the button got clicked, remembered in the variable x. So right now the variable x is 0, but now we're saying no, replace its value with this new click count value, which is 1. So if I go next, as you can see, x is now 1. If I put my mouse over it, x is 1. So let's run and click again. Run, and I'm going to click here again, and now I'm here the second time. Well, what's the value of x? We can see it here, right? And I can move my mouse over here. It says 1. Okay, so we're now at 1. 1 plus 1 will be 2. So therefore, when this line runs, click count should be 2. And we can see the value here. So let me go next. Yep, click count is 2. So this is going to display in a moment. It's going to say clicked 2. But we're going to remember as well, that the current number of clicks, which is represented by this variable x, it used to be 1, and now we're going to make it 2. So if I run this line, x is now 2. So let me go back to our whiteboard. See how we were basically going from 0, 1, 2, 3, we're counting? Well, and we said, well, you take the previous value, the previous count. If I say 2, to get to 3, I will say 2 plus 1 is equal to 3. And now 3 plus 1 is equal to 4. So we, in our head, remember where we are. When you count 0, 1, 2, 3, you know you're currently on 3. And that's what we're using this variable x. X is what we remember in our heads. We remember 3, we need to tell the computer to also remember 3. And the way we do that is by this kind of a trick that I'm showing you of creating this variable and storing a value inside it. I know this is tricky. This is what programming is. You have to take something you do in your head, and you don't even think how you're doing it, and you have to translate it to an algorithm that a computer could follow. And this is probably one of the trickiest things you learn the first time, just adding numbers like this. But believe me, as you as you use it more, you find that it actually makes a lot of sense. So for now, if it's not clear, I would encourage you to rewind the video and watch it again. But even if you still are fuzzy about it, don't worry. It's normal. It will get better. Anyway, let's go back here. So we have built our counter. And maybe you know what, the word, the letter X is not this X is not the good name because, well, like what is X? Why don't we make this variable name a little bit something more clear, right? Why don't we say number of clicks? Okay, I'm gonna copy this. And I would put it here, and I would put it here. So wherever I had X, I would put number of clicks. But if you're looking at this, you think, number of clicks, very long. And if you feel like, you know what, no, I'm going to only have X, that's fine too. It's a very simple program. It's very clear what this is. So I'm going to leave it as X, and the reason why is just to make it easier for you to type. So what I would like to ask you to do is implement this now. And let me highlight the code that you have to write. You have to declare this variable, this X, which remembers the number of times you clicked. You have to add this line. You know what? Too bad it changes the color. Let me see. Nothing I can do about that. Okay. So this line, and you have to say plus click count. Yes, plus click count. So go ahead and do that and come back when you're done. So this is working, but let's make one modification. As I told you, developers are lazy and we do not want to write more code than we have to. So there's a way of making this a little simpler. I know it may look a little weird, but I need to show this to you because it's very, very, very common. So look how we're creating a variable called count, and we're storing in it the next number of how many times you clicked now. So we take the previous number of clicks, we add one, and we store it in the click count. And then we take the click count and put it inside of the X. Well, there's a way of simplifying. What we could do is we could get rid of this. Maybe a little larger. We could get rid of this. And simply say X equals X plus 1. Now again, that may look a little weird, but let me show you how that would look like when it's actually implemented. We have to remove this var here. I'm not going to get into details why. This we'll discuss later. And see how click count is the same here. Click count is equal to this, and then make X equal to click count. Well, why don't we just take X and put it here and remove this? So what does that do? We say, okay, when let's just say the first time this gets clicked, X will be value 0. We're going to add 1 to it, so it's going to be 1. And where are we going to store the 1? We're going to store it back into X. So we're going to replace the previous value of 0, and we're going to put a new value of 1. And this will actually work. I'll show you. But one more thing I have to do, I have to change this to X. And let me save. Let me refresh and show you that this still works. Okay, it is working. So I want you to implement that. Because as you can see, look how much smaller the code is this way. So I'm going to highlight what you need to change, and I'll explain how that works in a moment. So you should get rid of the 2 lines and just have one line like this, and you'll have to replace the previous variable name with x here. Come back when you're ready. Now, I know this is weird. Every new developer, every person who's new to development will have trouble with this. So if it's confusing, don't be surprised. Let me refresh. Let me open F12 to open developer tools. Let me go here. And our watch has up. Here it is. See how it says click count not available? And the reason why is because there is no variable called click count. So it's saying no such bucket exists. So I'm going to remove it. So as the game refreshes, the value of the variable x is 0. Okay, that's because this line ran. And now I'm going to click and we're going to stop on this line because I have a breakpoint here. So let me run, and here I am stopped. So this is now before. This line here was not yet run. So what's the current value of x? Well, it is 0. But once I run this line, I will say 0 plus 1 is 1. Now put 1 back into x. So x should be, after running this line, it should be value of 1. And look and watch this here, what happens. I'm going to say next, and guess what? It is value of 1. And then we can display clicked 1. Let me run. Let me try clicking again. So I click again. What's the value of x now before this line runs? Well, the value of x is 1 because this button was clicked once, and now we're trying to click it again. 1 plus 1 is 2. So now we know that we clicked this button twice. And we're going to put it back into x. So after I run this line, x should now say 2. And it does. Let me run. One last time. Clicked here. The current value of x is 2. If I run this line, it should say 3. And it does. And that's how this works. We are almost done. We're going to publish this on our website, but maybe let's just change this text that says clicked, because we don't say clicked and then 3. Maybe we want to say something like number of times clicked or something, or number of clicks. How about that? So let's go here and say number of clicks. So go ahead, change that message to something like number of clicks. Again, this will be something that will be available to the internet because you will be publishing it. So please make sure that whatever you write here is not in any way inappropriate. Come back when you're finished. Now let's publish our work so far to the internet. So I'm going to open so I can log into my Spaces. So go to spaces.w3schools.com. I will make it available in the comments, but you can just type it in, spaces.w3schools.com. Then log in as you would. Then go to your space. So again, Spaces, then go space, and find your CPS HTML. I'm going to make it maybe a little bit larger. Find your CPS HTML and CPS CSS, and replace its content, the content of this file, with whatever we did now. So I'll come in here and I press Control A, right click, copy. I select everything here like this, right click, maybe it's best to actually go in here and remove it to be sure that there's nothing here. Okay, there it is, just line 1. And then paste. It's ask me if I allow pasting, and I will allow, and I will save. And same thing with CSS. Control A, copy. Again, remove everything that's there, make sure there's nothing there. Right click, paste, save. Then I go to the HTML, I try to run, and yes, it is indeed running. So do that, please, and I'll see you in the next video.